Engage, enlighten, empower. Hello and welcome to this edition of Create More Business Now Live. I am your host, Roderick Ferrier. A little bit about us here, Create More Business Now. What we do is we help you network with new prospects faster and with greater accuracy. So we have some powerful marketing automation systems that our clients use to communicate with their company's social media accounts like LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And we automatically close the gap between connections and client, adding value, shortening the sales cycle, giving you more time to communicate with hot prospects right now. Today's guest is Kellan Fluckiger. Kellan has worked with the Queen of England, state governors, senators, ministers, CEOs, Grammy winners, and policymakers at the highest level. He helps combine your thoughts, language, and actions into an unstoppable success machine. Helps you properly present yourself to attract high-end clients and position yourself as the unrivaled expert in your niche. He's also an author, a speaker, a business and success coach, marketing and social media expert, and he's a classically trained jazz pianist. And that just kind of put the icing on the cake for me. As a master coach, as he mentioned just a second ago, he is the creator of Break the Cage, a 90-day reinvention system. Kellan, I want to humbly welcome you, thanking you so much for taking time to be here on the call with our guest today. I'm going to turn this over to you.
You bet. Happy to be here, Rod. Today we're going to talk about, the name of this presentation is Break the Cage Now, and it's about overcoming fear, procrastination, and self-sabotage. And you may say to yourselves, why do I need to overcome fear, procrastination, and self-sabotage? What I really need is to get more leads in my business, and what I really need is to get more people in the door and make more money and get more clients. And, you know, I've worked with, over the years, thousands. In the last 8 years as a specific business coach, hundreds of clients who say the same thing. And when we understand and dig in there to find out, well, you know, what needs to happen to get these more prospects and to convert them to clients, it always comes down to one thing, and that is not, I don't know what to do. It is, I'm not doing what I really know. And I always am amazed how smart business owners are when you say the question like, gee, if I were your client and I had this problem you're describing, what would you tell me to do? And they give me a list of things that are very good, and I just hold up a mirror and say, well, that would be really good. How about if I hold you accountable to get those things done, and then we create a process and things move. So Break the Cage Now is about overcoming the barriers that keep us from moving forward, and I name those barriers fear, procrastination, and self-sabotage. So what you're going to get today is you're going to get complete truth, no hype. You're going to get one awesome secret and an opportunity. And the awesome secret has many, 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 many parts, because we're going to talk about the 6 questions to overcome fear and the 3 secrets for procrastination, and then the signals of self-sabotage and how to overcome them. So that's what you're going to get today. The one big secret under which all of this unfolds is the word choices. We get what we choose. Now, we're often in the habit of blaming, you know, external circumstances, the economy, the downturn, competitors, and all kinds of other things for our bad luck. Yet when things go well, it's because we were brilliant. In truth, we get what we choose. And that doesn't mean bad things don't happen outside that. Of course it does. Of course they do. But it is our reaction and our claiming that right to choose that really makes a difference. So the one thing to take away from this, under which all of this comes, is your choices are the things that matter. So I'm going to tell you a little quick story. I was raised in a really strict, today it would be called an abusive environment with a lot of physical punishment, a lot of physical, beatings and stuff. And it made me, believe the sort of false story that I wasn't good enough. I took refuge in music and piano and that sort of thing, which is what Rod mentioned. And so when I went to college, I took a composition class. And one of the first things, of course, was to, write a piece of music and turn it in. Well, my fear of not being good enough made me procrastinate that assignment. I put it off till the last minute. And then and then scribbled something, the night before. And then in the ultimate act of self-sabotage, I put a title on it, Junk in G minor. And when I gave that to the professor, he, handed it back and said, well, if you think this is junk, we don't really need to listen to it, right? And so fear, procrastination, and self-sabotage create the cage in which we live, where we sort of reach out between the bars, and if you can imagine, stretching out, trying to grab that life of prosperity, success, and business growth that we think we should have and that we see others having, and somehow it's beyond our reach. And so let's talk about how to eliminate those things today. The bars in this cage are fear, procrastination, and self-sabotage. And fear is interesting because often it is really obvious to others, but invisible to you when we're operating in fear. When someone's afraid, it's easy for us to see and hard for us to see it in ourselves. It's kind of like looking over the shoulder of someone playing a chess game. It's really easy for you to see the next move, and for some reason, they just can't see it. So fear shows up in two ways. One is that great big pile of things you're going to do someday, the business you're going to start, the new strategy you're going to try, that change you're going to make in yourself, even something simple like, the garage you're going to clean. Or the second way it manifests itself, besides the big pile of things that you're going to do someday, is the even bigger pile of excuses about how come you don't do it. It's the economy. It's my boss. It's too hard. It's too risky. I'm too busy. I'm too old. I'm too young. It's never been done. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough, and on and on and on. So, for example, John was a very successful consultant. He created electricity saving programs for government and industry, and he had a really good reputation as a successful consultant, and it made a name for himself. A few years ago, when they had one of the many energy shortages in California and blackouts and stuff like that, John did what he usually did, which was create another great idea. Only this time, because of the blackouts and because of the politics, and the governor's office was involved and senators were involved, John was frozen with fear. He was afraid to bring this great idea forward. So he came to me for help, and we worked together once a week. We met for about 3 months, and we dug into the issue here. And first he explained to me the program, how it would work and who would pay and who would benefit. And like I said, it was a brilliant idea. Then we worked through, okay, who should hear this? How should you present it? What is it that you're actually afraid of? And we worked through that, and he created himself a script with a plan about who he would present it to and how this would go down, and he did it. He presented it. He got it adopted. He got a 5-year contract. He saved the state of California $30 million and put a nice chunk of change in his pocket because he overcame that fear. When you look deeply into fear, it comes down to one sentence. The one sentence is, I'm not blank enough. And in that blank, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not, capable enough, I'm not connected enough, whatever it is, but that is the key piece. And so I'm going to give you a tool right now to use to overcome fear. There are 6 questions. When you find yourself paralyzed by fear, or delayed by fear, or spinning around doing extra research because you're afraid to launch, here are the 6 questions. Number 1, what is it that that I'm afraid of? What are you exactly afraid of? Write it down. Maybe it's afraid you'll be embarrassed. Maybe it's afraid you'll be wrong. Maybe it's, whatever it is, but be brutally honest. What is it that you're actually afraid of? And that's question number 1. After you write that down, then the next question is, where did that fear come from? So, for example, there may be things that have happened in your life before, and where is it? Where did it come from? Question number 3 is, what do you believe that gives that fear power? And so in my case, I believed, as a result of my upbringing and stuff, that I wasn't, good enough. I wasn't going to be successful. Nothing I did would work. And so that belief gave all my fears great power. Question number 4 is, where did that belief come from? You may or may not be able to identify that with precision, but just the act of thinking about it will give you new ideas. So, for example, I knew where mine came from. when I started analyzing my fears and getting them out of the way, I knew that it had come from my childhood experience. The fifth question is the killer, or the key, or the big dog, or however you want to say it, and that is it true? Now, if it's a belief you hold deeply, like mine was, woven literally into the fabric of my heart, that's going to be a really hard question for you to answer honestly yourself. And this is where I found it extremely valuable to get some help and have the services of a coach, someone that could help me look from the outside to help me understand if my beliefs that I was holding, that were holding me back, were actually true. Almost always you'll find that they are not true. And so when the answer to that question is no, the last question is the really key, which is, what would you do if you knew the belief was not true? And almost always that's an immediate, oh, well, then I do this, and I do this, and I'd launch this, and I'd call these people, and I'd make those calls, if you knew that it wasn't true. And in that process, through those 6 questions, you can disempower the fear and empower yourself to take action. If you apply that diligently with every fear, you'll be able to eliminate fear from your life. And when you eliminate fear, the sky is the limit. There's nothing you can't achieve. After all, every great discovery, whether it's a physical discovery like landing on the moon or exploring the Arctic, or launching your business, or creating a new product, or closing 10 times as many clients, will be possible for you when you eliminate the fears that hold you back, and that will let you rip that bar out of your cage. The second bar is procrastination. Procrastination is sneaky and subtle because, I just don't feel like doing that today. And it comes here a little and there a little, and pretty soon a week's gone by, a month's gone by, and, all those other activities you did that weren't really cash-generating activities, they've delayed you, they've put you off, and pretty soon months have gone by, and then a year, and then it's no longer important, and then whatever it is you were going to do joins that pile of stuff on the shelf of things that you put off and never actually finished. Then, when that starts happening, then you become overcome with guilt, with shame. You call into question your self-worth. I can never do this right. And you guys all know the story. And if procrastination is one of your favorite tools, either because you spend a lot of time doing non-productive activities, or you keep doing research, or you're paralyzed by analysis, or any of the number of ways we procrastinate, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, for example, Dave was a contractor who owned a business to make cabinets and carpet. He was a bricks and mortar guy that I worked with. And he had a very successful business. He made great cabinets. He did remodel stuff and also worked with some new construction. He had a great reputation, and people really liked working with him. But he had a cash flow problem. So he came to me for help. And we met, this was virtually on the phone every week for about a year, because this took a long time for him to implement. As we dove into what the issue was, it became obvious that he had 3 areas that he was procrastinating. Number 1, he did great work, but he didn't like the activity connected with collecting money. So he put off collecting money that was owed to him. All kinds of excuses. The other thing he didn't like doing was he didn't like prospecting, going out and asking for work. The third thing he didn't like doing was, it also turns out he was having some problems at home, and he'd been putting off addressing those issues. So we worked together, created a new script and some very specific approaches for him to take, and in a very short period of time, he was able to attack them, and by the time we were done, he had collected all the money that was due him, he had a steady stream of clients, and the issue at home was resolved. Ultimately, he was successful enough to sell the business, and he made some good money doing that, and then he got a job as a high-powered consultant for a large company, which was, for him, a dream job. Procrastination comes from not understanding the nature of choice. Abdication, or failure to choose, is a choice. Here is the key to eliminating procrastination. Realize that every single moment you are choosing 3 things. Number one, you choose what you focus on. Like right now, for example, you could be focusing, you could be taking notes, you could be doing, focusing intently on this, or you could be worrying about the buzz in your phone or the emails or a meeting you have to have later or what you had for breakfast or will have for dinner. That's a choice. What you focus on isn't the issue. It's the fact that you have a choice. The second thing you choose is the story you tell yourself. And the third thing you choose is the action that you take from that story. So I'll give you a personal example. In my journeys, I've had some failures at relationships. And in that case, I have a couple of kids that don't talk to me right now. One of the things that I chose to focus on was how painful that was. The story I told myself was that I was bad and that everything was my fault, and the action that led to was withdrawal and excessive drinking and other things like that. So that focus story action led to a really bad place. Another story that I could have told and learned to tell myself was the story that, there were some mistakes made and some struggles. There is time. Those things can be repaired. That story led to opportunity and optimism and a completely different set of actions. The key takeaway from this is that it is a choice. What you focus on is under your control every minute of the day. The story you tell yourself, positive or negative, is in your control, and the action you choose to take is also part of your choices. Now, one of the important choices you make is what you'll do for a living. Are you going to sing the song you came to sing or develop your gift and talent? Or are you going to die with your music inside? I use that analogy, I guess, because I'm the musician thing. You will choose one way or another. The procrastination tool is to understand the following. We procrastinate for three reasons. We procrastinate because we have a lack of clarity, a lack of confidence, or a lack of commitment. Now, lack of clarity manifests itself in, I just don't know what to do. If I just knew more clearly what to do. So the antidote for lack of clarity is action, not study. The minute you take a step, you either get closer to or further from your goal, and things become more or less clear. So the antidote for lack of clarity is not study and analysis, it is action. Confidence deficit can come from a couple of things. Maybe you don't have a certain skill and you don't know how to do something. That's easy to solve. Take the action, there's the action word again, to move forward with acquiring that skill. Learning to do that. Practically any information you want now is free. It's online and you can find it. The key is, will you take the action necessary to master the skill? The second reason we lack confidence is because, like we talked about earlier, we're sometimes afraid. And we handle fear the way we talked about earlier. The third issue is you're not committed. You're not committed when you procrastinate. You can answer whether or not that's you with one simple question. What am I willing to do to get this particular result? If your answer sort of feels like, well, I'm willing to kind of work hard and I'm willing to, do some stuff, you're not really committed. If the answer is, I'll crawl over broken glass, I'll do whatever I have to do, I'll stay up late, work hard, study, then you're in a place where you're committed. If you want to eliminate procrastination, the key is action to eliminate clarity issues, action to eliminate ability or capability issues, and action to eliminate confidence or commitment issues. Make a choice. Now, that brings up one other question, which is you may discover in assessing your commitment that you really don't want to do it. Okay, then take it off the table and decide once and for all you're not going to do it, and end the weight that it has on you, the weight that's holding you back. Dump it. Give yourself permission to dump it. That will allow you to rip out the second bar in the cage. So fear is gone. Procrastination is gone. Now we come to the worst one, which is self-sabotage. We all have a different version of this. Reasons we get in our own way. Reasons we sabotage our success. There's a couple of really serious ways this manifests itself. One way is you never finish what you start. So you start something, you're moving it along well, things are growing, things are happening, and then you just slow down and perfectionism kicks in, and you just never get it over the goal line. That is, and then it joins the list of, the big pile of things on the shelf you never quite finished, right? The second one is you finish it, you complete it. Maybe it's very successful. Maybe you make a lot of money, and maybe it didn't satisfy you. You're sort of saying, is that all there is? And so you abandon it because it's no longer satisfying, or worse yet, you burn it down. And, all the collateral damage that happens to people around you. I certainly have a lot of experience with that. I've done that in my career many times. Built something, finished it, and then, burned it down. I didn't understand the self-sabotage was at the root of that issue for me. All right, so let me give you an example. For example, Philip was a very promising young man. He was in his mid-20s. He was in his third year of college. He'd done really well. He wanted to go into medical school. He'd not graduated, but he'd finished 3 years of college on the honor roll. And somewhere between the third and fourth year, Philip's demons came out. He started doing self-sabotage. He started experimenting with drugs and got himself in deep trouble. And he had a girlfriend and a kid in the process of going to school, and they were doing really happily. But then this demon showed up, and when he finally showed up to ask for help, he had been a heroin addict for 2 years. It was very drastic, and he was at the point of losing not only his relationship, he'd already dropped out of school, he was at the point of perhaps losing his life. So this was a very serious set of interventions and a very serious bit of coaching that we did. We met together in very intense sessions, more than once a week for a while. He was able to identify his self-sabotage issues. One of them, it turned out that his parents were having some issues at home, and there were some relationship problems and other things that I'm not going to take time to describe here. But the point is, he was able to identify and then change the story around those. He got himself into a 90-day residential rehab. He quit heroin cold turkey. He finished the rehab. He went back in school. He graduated with honors, and now he's in graduate school. So he was able to do that and end the self-sabotage. Where does self-sabotage comes from? Well, it comes from one thing, and that is what I call the story of unworthy. Somehow we believe that we don't deserve something, or I can't have that much success, or I don't deserve to be happy, or things like having money will change me, or it's bad. One of those stories kicks in, and there are a dozen variations, but you create the idea that somehow you are unworthy. The story of unworthy is what causes self-sabotage. So here's a tool to eliminate self-sabotage for you. I call it living in the zone. Now, all of you that might be watching the NBA Finals have seen what it's like to have a player in the zone or to live in the zone. I call it the zone of dominance, or the ZOD. Now, that's not an alien from outer space. It's the zone of dominance. So what is a ZOD? Well, it is when you learn to take control of the only three things you have. You have control over your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. Imagine being able to direct your thoughts like you direct an orchestra. We have about 60,000 thoughts a day, okay? Most of them are chaotic and sort of uncontrolled. One of the things that I teach is how to learn to direct that like an orchestra. If you have a whole bunch of people with music in front of them and they're all playing from a different sheet of music at different times, it's chaos. The conductor walks up, taps his baton, boom, beautiful music starts. Learning to do that with practice and choice lets you direct your thinking. The second thing coming from that is harnessing your feelings. Feelings are like a raging river. They're going to run through your soul either way, whether they're harnessed or not. It's kind of like building a power plant on a river. That river is going to run. If you build a power plant on the river, as it runs, you create power. You create the ability to get things done because our feelings, our likes, our dislikes, our loves, our anger, our frustration, our determination, those feelings are what drive the engine of your creativity and creation, especially in your business. It drives you to serve others. It drives you to create unique value for your clients. Harnessing your feelings is turning that raging river into harnessed power. Again, that takes practice and it takes choice. The third thing is training your actions. Now, everyone has seen, like I said, a player in the zone. I liken it to skiing. You've seen someone, maybe you ski and maybe you don't, but if you've seen someone start to ski and they're not very good and they end up on their head in the snow or crashed or, fallen down, and then you see someone who rips artfully down a double black slope and it's like amazing, their body, their actions are trained. In like manner, we can and must train our actions so that they respond as productive habits. Habits make great servants and terrible masters. So learning to train your actions and moving them from random habits into productive habits also takes practice and choice. Now, I've gone through these three things about directing your thinking, harnessing your feelings, and training your actions very quickly because of limited time in this particular setting. But I have a whole program designed to do that. And when you have those three things done, you can live in the zone. That means you can get yourself in a state of high performance every day at will. And when that happens, you are an unstoppable machine. You can eliminate self-sabotage and rip out the third bar. Move yourself to a state of freedom. It all comes down to choice. Now, one of the things that people always say to me right at this point, after I've outlined those tools, is, I can't do that alone. And the answer is, you're right. This is what I consider to be the most important part of this, and that is getting the help you need, getting the help that is required to eliminate fear, procrastination, and self-sabotage. I found in my own life, when I had the right mentor and coach, I was able to move 10 times faster because I had that external eye that was willing to be honest with me and move me forward in a really good way. Help that is not just once, not just what you get at a conference, but a regular interaction that's ongoing, someone who knows you, understands your goals, and wants your victory. So help from who and with what is the key question. So choose your mentors and coaches carefully. Make sure they're someone that brings you the right tools that work and real access to them that is helpful and frequent and that is deep, because they know you and they know your goals. One of the things I say about coaching is it's blind spot protection service or dream realization service. They're kind of things that I use to describe that process. So the final thing I want to say is we often, as business owners, get seduced into the idea that we just need to buy one more tool. Oh, if I could just buy that Facebook course, or if I could just buy that autoresponder, if I could just get this one more tool. You don't need another magic tool. What you need is to turn your life into a magic process by learning to direct your thinking, harness your emotions, and train your actions, and living in the zone. You can win, and it comes down to the simple fact of choice. As a last story, I have one final story about Felipe. I own a recording studio and have for 35 years, and have had the opportunity to work with all kinds of people. And Felipe was a young kid in his early 20s, and he had visions. He wanted to be a rock star, and he was a producer, actually. And so he came to me not knowing really how to get his own brand in the world and make a mark. And we worked together sometimes more than once a week for a couple of years. And over this time, he learned to create his music. He learned to put his own mark and stamp on it. And above all, he wouldn't take no for an answer. He wouldn't stop no matter what. The final result of him is he achieved everyone's greatest dream. Ultimately, he was able to win a Grammy. And so was one of the artists that he worked with. So the final question for you today is, how high are you going to fly? And will you do what it takes to break free from whatever constraints are holding you down, getting the help you need, and then launching yourself and your business to the sky? Rod, I'm finished.
Kellan, thank you very much, my friend. That was powerful. Guys, the opportunity here to control your choices, to, as Kellan said, and I wrote this down, to disempower the fear and empower your actions. I challenge you today, guys, to take action. As you can see here at the bottom of the screen, if you want to get in touch with Kellan here directly, simply just visit createmorebusinessnow.com/Kellan Fluckiger. You will be able to get his contact information. Engage, enlighten, empower.